Let me ask you one question, and to the extent that you can analyze from your own life experience, explain to the American people that we're on, in every state in the country, 535 of the best radio stations in the world. And Barack Obama's budget would allow $634 billion as a down payment for pretty much nationalizing health care, although he denies it, but that's what it is. And I read in the Daily Telegraph, I believe it was, last week, that for example, Britain's rationing body, the National Health System, has literally denied drugs to women with breast cancer and men with a rare form of stomach cancer because it costs too much. What would you say to Americans that think nationalized medicine is, or socializing medicine is a good idea?
I would say, my friends, don't do it. Prevent it, resist it, let it not be so, lest child's children call against you woe, as our national poet went on in the same speech. This is, if you forget everything else that I say in this interview, and you remember one thing, do not repeat what Britain has done in the National Health Service. It's the last remaining, or at least it will be when Castro eventually dies, it'll be the last remaining Marxist healthcare system on Earth. And you can dress it up in all sorts of ways, but what it means is that a committee takes literally life and death decisions, over, as you say, access to drugs that can keep you alive, to completely change your quality of life. That you, as a recipient, have absolutely no entitlements. You're not a customer, you're not a consumer, you don't have any kind of contractual right to things to say, hang on, I paid the insurance on this. You're treated as a supplicant. It's like going back to the Iron Curtain countries. You're expected to stand in line and then be grateful for whatever you get. And of course, the system is so wasteful, because there's no incentive either to the doctor or to the patient to kind of shop around and get better treatment, that it's consuming, a remarkably high percentage of national wealth while delivering some of the worst health outcomes in the Western world. So, no system is perfect. Your system isn't perfect. Our system isn't perfect. No one in the world has got a system that is beyond criticism. But if there is one thing that I would warn you against, you imagine me like the guy in H.G. Wells' book who comes back from the future and says, listen, don't do it. Please do not move towards a national healthcare system. Now,
tell me if I'm right in my reading. You supported Obama. Is that true?
Yeah, pretty much on balance. I was on balance for him because I was really rather angry at what had been happening to the Republican Party in the late Bush years. It seemed to me that the GOP had drifted away from what ought to have been its core principles. It was becoming a party of higher spending, of big federal deficits. It was becoming a party of external protectionism and steel tariffs. Latterly, of course, it became a party of bailouts and nationalizations. So part of it was that I thought this would be a good election for the Republicans to lose. It would be a good time for them to go and sort themselves out in opposition. And by the way, I think that's starting to happen. Look at the difference between the vote on the Bush stimulus package and the vote on the Obama one. A lot of GOP congressmen who went along with the original one have now pulled themselves together and returned to what ought to have been their core principles all along. But I'll say this positively about Obama, and this is no doubt going to ensure that I never get asked back to your show, but I think American authority matters in the world. I think American popularity matters in the world. Your country had been unfairly traduced and unfairly derided by an awful lot of people. But politics isn't fair, and the very fact of the change of government has suddenly made your country a lot more popular, with the South American anti-Yankees, with some of the people in the Muslim world, with some of the French sophisticates. Now, okay, you might say, well, why do we care about their goodwill? You can say that. You can afford to say that shielded behind your great oceans. From my point of view, I think a world in which the US is armed and active and engaged is a happier place a world where the U.S. is scorned.
I say it a little bit differently, Daniel, and I think America, frankly, is underappreciated, and it has been our blood, sweat, and tears, and I think in many, many ways, over recent generations, America has been bearing the brunt and the fiscal responsibility of defending liberty and freedom against tyranny, and I point to recent examples of Nazi Germany and fascism and imperial Japan and totalitarianism and communism and now terrorism, and we have borne the brunt.
Sean, you don't have to persuade me. But it was our poet Kipling who, when you took the Philippines almost 110 years ago, who said, "Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The hate of those you better, the blame of those you guard." And maybe it's a black man's burden now rather than a white man's burden under Obama. But the essence of it is still, don't expect these guys to thank you. But that doesn't mean, I'm afraid, that you can sulk and disengage.
Well, listen, I'm very honored because of the constraints of time. I know you've got to go, but I'm very honored you're going to be on TV tonight. By the way, a mutual friend of ours, Matt Drudge, wanted me to say hello to you, and I agree with the sentiment that he has expressed. The big media no longer has control, and your speech has resonated throughout the world. It's an inspiration, and I'm very honored that you joined us today, and I hope we'll stay in touch, and I look forward to having you on television on our show tonight. So thank you very, very much.
Much to like about being on your show, Sean. It's an honor. Thanks.
All right, we really appreciate it. The member of the European Parliament, Daniel Hannan, on the Sean Hannity Show. He'll join us tonight on Hannity.